Over 50 ships and 20 planes have vanished without a trace in this area. The Bermuda Triangle still sends chills down people's spines, and now it's given us another mystery. What could happen next? Scientists have discovered a strange new mystery under the North Atlantic, right beneath the Bermuda archipelago. It's an infamous region. You must have heard about the Bermuda Triangle, right? It's a huge area in the North Atlantic, roughly between Florida, Bermuda, and the Greater Antilles, roughly forming a massive triangle. Experts haven't agreed on its exact boundaries yet, but it covers hundreds of thousands of square miles. You must have heard creepy stories about ships and planes disappearing in the triangle. We'll talk about it a bit later. Right now, another mystery is looming on the horizon. Below the island of Bermuda, researchers have found an enormous rock layer about 12.5 miles thick, and it's way thicker than anything like this anywhere else in the world. Now, normally the ocean floor has a crust at the bottom, and below that is the mantle. But under Bermuda, there's an extra layer right beneath the crust, inside the tectonic plate the island sits on. It's a totally unexpected structure, and scientists aren't sure how it could form. This discovery might explain a long-standing mystery about Bermuda itself. The island is located on an oceanic swell. That's a part of the ocean floor that's higher than its surroundings. Now, usually a swell like this comes from volcanoes, but there's no evidence of any ongoing volcanic activity there. Bermuda's last known eruption occurred 31 million years ago. That's why the discovery of this new rock layer is so important. It may be the clue to a baffling mystery. Researchers think the last eruption might have pushed mantle rock up into the crust. This rock then froze in place, forming a kind of raft that lifted the ocean floor by about 1,600 feet. And this giant frozen structure may be what keeps the Bermuda archipelago on an oceanic swell, high above the surrounding ocean floor. You see, some island chains form because of hot spots deep under the earth. Hot rock rises from the mantle, melts, and creates volcanoes. When this happens, the ocean floor gets pushed up. But after that, as tectonic plates shift, islands slowly drift away from the hot mantle plume that created them. They cool down, sink under their own weight, and leave a trail of old volcanoes behind. Over millions of years, many of these once tall islands sink below the ocean. Some become underwater mountains. Those are called seamounts. And if erosion flattens their tops near the surface, they're called guyas. A perfect example is the Hawaiian Emperor chain. Hawaii's Big Island is still active and above water, but as you go northwest, the islands get older, smaller, and eventually sink below the ocean. Bermuda is different. Its swell hasn't gone down, even though it hasn't had a volcanic eruption in millions of years. To figure out this mystery, scientists used a seismic station on Bermuda. They looked at how waves from big earthquakes around the world traveled under the island at a depth of about 31 miles. They noted where the waves changed speed, and it helped them find a huge thick layer of rock under Bermuda. Interestingly, this rock is less dense than the surrounding material, acting like a raft, keeping the ocean floor lifted and explaining the island's swell. Research shows that the lava from Bermuda is low in silica, which means it came from a rock that is high in carbon. And the analysis of zinc in rock samples suggests that this carbon came from deep in the mantle. It was likely pushed there when the supercontinent Pangaea formed between 900 million and 300 million years ago. This is different from islands formed over hotspots in the Pacific or Indian Oceans. One of the reasons may be that the Atlantic is a younger ocean, created when Pangaea split, while the Pacific and Indian Oceans are older. And Bermuda's location, once at the heart of Pangaea, may help explain why it is so unique. Scientists are now studying other islands to see if similar rock layers exist or if Bermuda is truly one of a kind. Understanding extreme locations like Bermuda helps scientists figure out the normal and unusual processes that shape our planet. Now, the Bermuda Triangle itself has fascinated and frightened people for over a century. Officially, the Bermuda Triangle doesn't even exist. No world map marks it, and the U.S. Board on Geographic Names doesn't recognize it as a real region. But people still know about this location and fear it. Stories of unexplained disappearances in the area date back to the mid-19th century, but the phrase Bermuda Triangle didn't appear until 1964, when the region was described as a triangular stretch of ocean that had destroyed hundreds of ships and planes without a trace. In 1918, the USS Cyclops vanished without explanation while traveling from Brazil to Baltimore, taking 306 crew members with it. Decades later, in 1945, Flight 19 disappeared over the same waters, leaving no wreckage and no clues. American writer Charles Berlitz added fuel to the mystery in his 1974 bestseller, The Bermuda Triangle. He even linked the disappearances to the mythical lost city of Atlantis. But despite the stories, the Bermuda Triangle isn't unusually dangerous. Studies, including one by the World Wildlife Fund in 2013, show that it's not even among the world's 10 most hazardous shipping areas. The region sees heavy daily traffic by both sea and air, which makes it one of the busiest shipping lanes on the planet. So, why all the mystery? The Bermuda Triangle gets hit by tropical storms and hurricanes all the time. The Gulf Stream, a powerful ocean current, dashes through the area and causes sudden and extreme weather changes. Compass readings can get tricky here too. The agonic line, where true north and magnetic north align, sometimes passes through the triangle. And below it all lies the Atlantic's deepest point, the Milwaukee Depth. It plunges 27,500 feet into the Puerto Rico Trench. These factors combined can lead to accidents that will make anyone believe there's something mysterious going on in the region. No wonder people have always been wondering about what's going on there. A few theories emerged. Let's take a look at the most plausible ones. So one thing to consider is rogue waves. These are super big, sudden waves that pop up out of nowhere. They're at least twice as tall as the waves around them, like walls of water. They're really dangerous for ships and anything in the ocean. Add all those severe storms and powerful currents in the triangle, and you'll understand that a ship could get smashed in seconds in such conditions. Some scientists talk about methane bubbles coming up from the ocean floor. According to them, if enough of that gas hits the water at once, it actually makes the water less dense, and this can actually cause a ship to sink. Sure, this phenomenon doesn't happen all the time, but it's enough to make people nervous. Then there's the magnetic stuff. Back in the day, compasses would freak out in the Bermuda Triangle because true north and magnetic north sometimes line up here. So sailors get totally lost. GPS fixes that these days, but in the past, it caused serious headaches and led to rumors and urban legends. Plus, as we already know, the weather is severe in that area. Hurricanes, tropical storms, and the Gulf Stream can turn calm waters into a total nightmare in no time. But a lot of it is just human error, too. The Triangle is one of the busiest shipping routes on the planet. Pilots and captains can mess up, especially in bad weather or at night. Flight 19 is a classic example. Once we mix heavy traffic with all those natural hazards, accidents are just going to happen. So even though the Bermuda Triangle is kind of scary, mostly it's just nature doing its thing. And we just need to deal with it. We still have a lot to explore and discover in that region, and we need to learn to navigate that area.
Over the past 100 years, more than 50 ships and 20 planes have just vanished in the Bermuda Triangle. No wreckage, no goodbyes, nothing. Every disappearance feels like the start of a thriller, with no ending. No wonder people spun up wild theories. Time warps, underwater cities, space civilizations. And now, a scientist claims he has solved the Bermuda Triangle mystery. The Bermuda Triangle itself is a patch of ocean between Florida, Bermuda, and the Caribbean islands. Its size is not fixed, ranging from 500,000 to 1.5 million square miles. People blame this region for many mysterious vanishings. Here are some of the creepiest ones. In 1881, the Ellen Austin was sailing from Liverpool to New York when Captain Griffin made a risky choice, cutting through the stormy Sargasso Sea right in the Bermuda Triangle. Soon they spotted a drifting ship. No signals, no crew, just an eerie silence. After 2 days of watching, Griffin sent men aboard. They found the schooner fully stocked. Cargo, supplies, everything, yet completely abandoned. Griffin decided to put some of his own crew on the vessel and sail both ships to New York. But then a violent storm struck. When it cleared, the schooner was adrift again, and the men he'd placed on board were gone. Shaken, Griffin abandoned the ship and pressed on to New York. No one saw the schooner and the crew ever again. On March 4, 1918, the mighty USS Cyclops left Barbados, bound for Baltimore. Its hull was groaning under the weight of 11,000 tons of manganese ore. She never made it. The last words from the ship were routine and calm. Weather fair, all well. And then there was nothing but silence. No distress call, no wreckage, no bodies. In that 9-day window when she should have reached port, the Cyclops simply vanished with 305 men on board. It remains the single greatest non-combat loss of life in U.S. naval history. On December 22, 1967, the Witchcraft, a 23-foot luxury cruiser, slipped out just a mile off the Miami coast. Its owner and his friend planned nothing more dramatic than floating quietly to admire the Christmas lights. At 9 p.m., the Coast Guard received a calm call. The boat had struck something and needed a tow. There was no panic, mind you, no danger. They promised to fire a flare to mark their location. Less than 20 minutes later, rescuers arrived at the exact spot, but the sea was empty. No boat, no flare, no sign of the two men. The Witchcraft was gone. On December 5, 1945, 5 planes took off from Fort Lauderdale for what should have been a routine 3-hour training run, but soon after the departure, things went wrong. Their leader, Lieutenant Charles Taylor, reported his compass was failing. Convinced they were over the Florida Keys, he ignored protocol and steered northeast deeper into the Atlantic. His men argued, urging him west toward land, but he was still confused. The weather became worse and transmissions grew weaker. Fuel was running low. Taylor's final message was that once the first plane was nearly dry, they'd all ditch together. Then there was nothing but silence. The Navy launched a massive search. 2 rescue planes went out. But within 20 minutes, one of them also vanished, taking 13 crew with it. No wreckage along with 27 men in total was ever found. Then there's also a blood-curdling story of Great Isaac Rock, which was home to just 2 men, its lighthouse keepers. On August 4, 1969, a boat arrived there after repeated radio silence. The island was empty. Both men were gone. A hurricane had swept past days earlier, yet the lighthouse stood unharmed and supplies were untouched. Why would seasoned keepers abandon the safest shelter they had? Some think they were swept out to sea. Others claim smugglers or some other criminals took them. So far, the mystery of Great Isaac remains unsolved. And still, an Australian scientist, Carl Kruszelnicki, says nope, there's nothing paranormal here. And the US NOAA has been saying the same thing for years. Their claim that ships and planes disappear everywhere. The ocean's huge, storms are nasty, and sometimes bad luck just hits. NOAA even said straight up in 2010, "There's zero proof that stuff goes missing in the Bermuda Triangle any more often than anywhere else people travel by sea." Since way back in 2017, Kruszelnicki has been waving the same flag. The Bermuda Triangle isn't cursed, it's just crowded. He told The Independent that with so many ships and planes constantly moving through that stretch of ocean, which is already a pain to navigate, it only makes sense that some are going to vanish. On a percentage basis, the number of accidents there is no different from anywhere else in the world. And it's not just his opinion. Lloyd's of London, one of the biggest insurance companies in the world, has been saying the same thing since the 1970s. Even the US Coast Guard backs him up. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration also has a pretty non-spooky explanation. They point to natural forces like the Gulf Stream, a powerful current that can whip up violent weather in seconds. There's also the maze of Caribbean islands, which makes navigation way more complicated than people think. And then we should consider a strange quirk of Earth's magnetism that can mess with compasses, making them point to the true north instead of magnetic north. Krushelnicki keeps popping up in the headlines too, repeating the same thing. Statistics don't lie. Even with famous cases like Flight 19, the explanations are straightforward. Bad weather, pilot error, or usually a mix of both. Sadly, the world doesn't want boring math problems. Conspiracy theories about the Bermuda Triangle, those giant sea monsters, the lost city of Atlantis sinking into the sea, are way more fun to imagine. Sure, the scientific explanation makes more sense, but it doesn't give you goosebumps the way a good sea monster story does. Interestingly, the Bermuda Triangle isn't the only mysterious place that swallows planes and ships. There's also the Bass Strait Triangle, a patch of wild, unpredictable water between mainland Australia and Tasmania. Its history is basically littered with eerie disappearances. Probably the most chilling tale is that of Frederick Valentich. It occurred in 1978. Just 20 years old, he was flying his little Cessna toward King Island. He radioed in about a strange metallic object circling above him. Moments later, there was only static. He was never found. To this day, no one knows what he saw or what happened to him. Back in 1973, the freighter MV Blythe Star simply vanished in the area too. Survivors were later drifting for days, clinging to life. The wreck was eventually located, but the circumstances surrounding how it sank still raised tons of questions. But the strait's grim tally stretches way further back. In 1797, it was the sloop Eliza. It was gone without a trace while salvaging cargo from the wreck of the Sydney Cove. From 1838 to 1840, a whole wave of vanishings occurred in the region. At least 7 ships on course to Melbourne vanished, full crews and all, and only 3 wrecks were ever found. The rest remained lost forever. There were many, many more disappearances after that. One of the latest happened on August 2, 2025. Gregory Vaughan, 72, and Kim Warner, 66, took off from Georgetown, Tasmania, in a light sport aircraft, heading for Hillston, New South Wales. They never arrived there. Searches turned up nothing. The Bass Strait has never needed help to make people vanish. Every incident deepens the mystery, yet experts insist it's not curses at work, it's the strait itself. Shallow waters, rogue winds that shift without warning. Sailors and pilots face a bad mixture of nature's worst every time they enter that corridor. And at the end of the day, most of these disappearances, both in the Bermuda Triangle and anywhere else, have logical explanations. Wild weather, tricky currents, human behavior, just bad luck. But when patterns emerge, our brains love to connect the dots, even if it's mostly a coincidence. Maybe that's exactly why these mystery tales will never truly vanish.
You probably saw a viral video where YouTubers hid a huge treasure in the Bermuda Triangle, and a random guy dared to go after it. He scored $10,000, but let's be real, his biggest win was getting out of there alive. This dangerous stretch of water between Florida, Puerto Rico, and Bermuda is notorious for its chilling and unexplained events. They say that more than 50 ships and 20 airplanes have mysteriously disappeared in the Bermuda Triangle. This leads to many theories, suggesting that this area is somehow linked to mystical powers or vortices that pull objects into other dimensions. But an Australian scientist named Karl Krushelnicki might have actually cracked the code on the Bermuda Triangle mystery. According to him, most popular legends and eerie disappearances can be explained by 2 main factors. The first factor is human error. One theory debunked by Krushelnicki was about the doomed Flight 19. Back in 1945, a group of 5 planes from the U.S. Navy took off on a routine training mission from Florida. Everything was going well until, 90 minutes into the flight, the troop commander reported that they were lost, and then, poof, they just disappeared. One of the largest air and sea searches in history was conducted to find them, but to this day, no one has found any trace of Flight 19 or the 14 men on board. What still makes people scratch their heads about this event is that the weather conditions when they took off were actually great. A relatively warm day, fluffy white clouds drifting across the sky, and a breezy wind coming from the southwest. Pretty standard for training flights, really, nothing out of the ordinary. So, what happened? It turns out that despite the flight leader having over 2,000 flying hours, he was a bad pilot. Actually, a really bad pilot. According to Krushelnicki, the commander was such a poor navigator that he had gotten lost at sea on at least 2 previous occasions before the Flight 19 incident. On that doomed day, he even tried to get someone to cover his shift but was unsuccessful, to the misfortune of his entire team. After their training flight exercise was completed successfully, both compasses on board stopped working. On the patrol's radio, his anxious voice said they were over land, or precisely, he was sure they were flying above the Florida Keys. But that didn't make any sense. He had made his scheduled pass over hens and chicken shoals in the Bahamas less than an hour earlier, but now he believed his plane had somehow drifted hundreds of miles off course and ended up in the Florida Keys. He couldn't have been more wrong. According to the most plausible theories about this case, what he thought was the Florida Keys was actually some small islands in the Bahamas. And here's where the real mess happened. Instead of turning back to the west, toward Florida, he kept flying east, deeper into the Atlantic Ocean. His plane eventually ran out of fuel, and you already know the rest of the story. Okay, some theorists might argue that a malevolent force somehow interfered with the 2 compasses, causing them to fail while they were flying this supposedly cursed stretch of water. But let's face it, even if that were true, human error was the main factor here. The pilot shouldn't have mistaken the Bahamas Islands for the Keys. End of that story. Now let's talk about the second factor that, according to Krushelnicki, explains many of the strange disappearances in the Bermuda Triangle, and that's related to bad weather. A lot of Atlantic tropical storms and hurricanes actually pass right through the Bermuda Triangle. So before we had advanced weather forecasting, these storms had caused a bunch of ships to go missing back in the day. On top of that, the Gulf Stream runs through the area too. That's a super strong ocean current that can make the weather change quickly and sometimes pretty dramatically. So when you think about it, natural factors like these could explain many, if not most, of the disappearances. Take the USS Cyclops, for example. Back in 1918, this massive 500-foot cargo ship, carrying about 11,000 tons of manganese, just disappeared without a trace. It was sailing from the West Indies to Baltimore, with 309 people on board. What makes this event extra eerie is that not a single distress signal was sent. Over 100 years later, we still have no idea what happened to it. No wreckage has ever been found. Of course, people have come up with all kinds of theories about the USS Cyclops. One popular idea is that it ran into a sudden, violent storm. With all that heavy manganese on board, it might have capsized and sunk really fast. Others speculate about underwater events, like landslides or even a rogue wave. Now, this is not such a crazy theory if you think about it. According to Krushelnicki, the Bermuda Triangle isn't just a bad weather zone. It is about the raw power of the ocean itself. The ocean floor there is way deeper than most people realize, going down nearly 30,000 feet. That's basically like Mount Everest in reverse. When the ocean water gets that deep, it tends to hide things, making it the perfect place for ships and planes to just disappear without a trace. The expert confirms that there is also a tiny chance that even stranger events could be happening beneath the waves of the Bermuda Triangle. and that is related to methane clathrate. This is a fancy name for an ice-like compound that forms underwater or in really cold places with methane gas trapped inside. Sometimes these structures can break free, creating bubbles on the surface, and this bubble shower can be fatal, at least for ships. Some experiments done with model ships showed that if enough bubbles rise up, the water's density drops, and this can mess with the ship's ability to float. If a large number of bubbles come up and cover a large area quickly, the ship could lose enough buoyancy to sink or tip over. But to be fair, the chances of something like that happening are very remote. So, human error and bad weather. Those are the two factors that likely explain all the mysteries surrounding this so-called malevolent stretch of water. But the truth is, the Bermuda Triangle isn't all that special. Although this region is very popular, there are no official maps that clearly outline its exact boundaries and say, "Look, here, precisely, is the Bermuda Triangle." And that is part of the problem. Disappearances and unexplained events that happen far from the actual region end up being lumped into the Bermuda Triangle's list of unexplained mysteries, like the Mary Celeste's fate. In 1872, this ship was found completely intact, but with no sign of the captain, his family, or the crew. People thought, okay, creepy fact, ghost ship, so it must be related to the Bermuda Triangle. But one thing doesn't add up. The Mary Celeste was abandoned about 400 miles east of the Azores, so we're talking about a completely different part of the Atlantic. By this time, the triangle has morphed into a trapezoid to cover that huge chunk of the North Atlantic. What I'm trying to say here is that once people start believing in a danger zone, confirmation bias takes over. But the facts are that the Bermuda Triangle sees tons of daily traffic every single day, both by sea and air. And according to experts, the number of incidents that happen there is pretty much the same as anywhere else in the world, percentage-wise. Some years the number is a bit higher, some years lower, but it averages out the same. With that in mind, it seems like it's time for us to finally move on from wild theories involving the Bermuda Triangle. Well, at least until the next bizarre disappearance comes along.
A huge invisible danger zone is hanging above Earth, messing with satellites, zapping electronics, and giving astronauts a headache. Scientists call it the South Atlantic Anomaly, and it's kind of like the Bermuda Triangle of space, because weird stuff happens there and nobody fully understands why. Want to know more about this thing? Well, Earth has a magnetic field that protects us from dangerous radiation from the sun. We'll talk about it later. And over one spot on the planet, right above the South Atlantic Ocean, that shield gets weirdly weak. It stretches over South America and parts of Africa, creating a sort of magnetic soft spot. That weak spot is bad news for anything flying up there. When satellites travel through it, their systems can freak out. Computers freeze, data gets scrambled, and sometimes entire instruments shut down. Basically, the space version of your phone glitching out right when you need it most. Astronauts have to be extra careful in this region too. When the International Space Station passes through the anomaly, radiation levels spike. It's not enough to fry anyone, but it's surely not fun. The equipment can take a serious hit. No one knows exactly what's going on yet, but scientists think the SAA might be a clue that Earth's magnetic field is shifting. If that's true, it could mean big changes for the future, for us all. You see, the South Atlantic Anomaly is connected to Earth's molten insides. Deep beneath the surface, the planet's core and mantle are constantly moving, flowing, and clashing. The outer core is a swirling ocean of liquid metal, and the mantle above is hot, solid rock. Under Africa, there's nothing to cool things down. The mantle is hotter than usual, which creates certain instability in the magnetic field above. As for South America, there, the Nazca Plate is dragging rock and debris down toward the core. This cools things off and keeps the field more stable. Such a wild temperature difference seems to be fueling the anomaly. According to some sources, it drives it across the Atlantic. The anomaly is slowly drifting westward. The thing is, Earth's magnetic field protects us from dangerous radiation from space, powerful solar winds, and wild swings in temperature, and keeps our atmosphere in check. But over millions of years, the magnetic poles have flipped. When it happens, north becomes south, south becomes north, and during those flips, the field can weaken. And some scientists thought the South Atlantic anomaly might be a warning sign before a full magnetic reversal. It could mean disaster to humans, but we'll talk about it later. The good news is, these flips take over. On average, Earth flips its magnetic poles about 2 times per million years. That means the next reversal could be hundreds of thousands of years away. Nearly 600 million years ago, our planet's shield almost failed, but at that time, it could have been a good thing. Scientists think this near collapse might have triggered a massive evolutionary boost and helped the first complex life forms to evolve. Back then, during a period called the Ediacaran, the magnetic field weakened drastically and stayed that weak for about 26 million years. With less protection, solar radiation removed lighter gases from the atmosphere, leaving oxygen floating freely in the air and oceans. That oxygen helped the first multicellular oxygen-breathing organisms to see the light of day. Those were strange, squishy creatures that hardly resembled animals today. Some were disc-shaped blobs, fronds, or shapeless fans, stretching over 3 feet long. By the way, one of the earliest known animals, Dickinsonia, was among them. It looks kinda pretty, doesn't it? Now, how do we know all this? Thanks to rocks. They're like time capsules. Tiny crystals inside them preserve the power of the magnetic field from hundreds of thousands of years ago. For example, certain crystals from southern Brazil revealed that 591 million years ago, Earth's magnetic field was 30 times weaker than it is now, and rocks from South Africa dating back 2 billion years showed that the field was at full strength back then. Now, let's explore a bit. Deep beneath our feet, there's Earth's inner core. We're used to thinking about it as a perfect solid ball, but new research suggests it might be changing shape. Over the past 20 years, parts of the inner core may have bulged or dipped by more than 300 feet. That's like a skyscraper popping up or sinking deep underground inside the planet. This core spins independently from the outer liquid core, which creates the magnetic field that shields us from dangerous solar radiation. The magnetosphere is non-negotiable. Without it, Earth would lose its atmosphere over time. Water would vanish, and life as we know it wouldn't survive. It basically keeps the planet alive. Without it, Earth could turn into a barren Mars, which lost its magnetic field billions of years ago, and along with it, almost all its atmosphere. So why is our planet's inner core deforming? It seems to happen where the solid inner core meets the super hot liquid outer core. The molten metal flows around it, and combined with the tug of an uneven gravity field, likely warps its edges. Scientists can't drill down to the core to check this theory. It's 3,200 miles below the surface. But they can track seismic waves from earthquakes as they ripple through Earth. They measure how these shock waves bend, slow down, or speed up, and it can help figure out what the inner core is made of and how it moves. That's probably how they know that the solid inner core is slowly growing, freezing layer by layer of the liquid outer core. But don't worry, it'll take billions of years to fully solidify. By that point, life on Earth would probably already be gone anyway. The sun's gonna swallow our planet long before the inner core stops moving. But let's get back to the topic that, I bet, worries you most. What if Earth's magnetic field just vanished one day? Well, the planet would be hit by a storm of charged particles from the sun. Satellites would start glitching and power grids would go down. We would get zapped with higher levels of UV radiation, the kind that can cause all kinds of serious health issues. In short, it wouldn't be instant doom, but life would get a lot trickier. Luckily, now we know that a magnetic field doesn't just vanish overnight, but ours has been slowly weakening for over a century. So what would life on a planet with a super weak magnetic field look like? You would just have to throw away your compass. It wouldn't point north anymore, just towards the nearest patch of strongest magnetism, wherever that may be. The northern and southern lights would go insane, appearing closer to the equator, all because charged solar particles would be able to get through the atmosphere more easily. Satellites would be under constant attack. Solar particles would fry their electronics, mess with memory, and cause what scientists call single-event upsets. High-frequency radio signals would also get scrambled, thanks to free electrons in the ionosphere. Over time, the solar wind could even start wearing down the ozone layer, leaving us all more exposed to UV radiation. Now, let's decrease the level of drama. A magnetic field isn't the only thing keeping a planet alive. Mars did lose its magnetic shield about 4 billion years ago, and most of its atmosphere got blown away. But Venus has no global magnetic field, but still has a thick atmosphere. If Earth lost its magnetic field completely, we wouldn't instantly vanish, but life would definitely change, and we would have to get used to these drastic changes.